If you are looking for some ideas on how to feed your family delicious meals that won't break the bank, I've got you covered. In this video, I'm sharing with you 5 nights of dinners that I made for my family of 5 on a budget. I am shopping for this meal plan in my local Walmart neighborhood market. And my goal was not to do a super extreme budget with this video, but to do a more modest budget. So my aim is to spend around $75 for 5 family dinners that feed my family of 5. And that comes out to 25 plates, so $3 a plate, which is still pretty inexpensive when you're thinking about it, especially in today's society, in today's economy. But also it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to have a little bit more luxury and a little bit more convenience in this meal plan. This week I'm gonna make a few recipes with beef, and I normally would not splurge in a budget meal plan on the stew meat that's already cut up. But in this case, I am, because I'm gonna make 2 recipes with it, and the price per pound on the family pack of the beef stew meat is almost exactly the same as the price per pound on the chuck roast. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the shortcut because it's basically gonna be the same price since I'm using it across 2 recipes. I'm also getting some chicken breast, but I scouted out the smallest of the chicken breast packages because I only need about 3 pounds. This is 4 pounds, so that's okay. We'll have a little extra chicken left over. But I'm also splurging on some bacon for this meal plan for a couple of the recipes. So I'm gonna go with the store brand, 1 pound for $4.48, but I don't want the thick sliced. I kind of want the thinner one, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick up this one, even though it's the hickory smoked. I need some eggs for these recipes, and they're up to $1.96 today at my Walmart, but I'm gonna pick up a dozen of these. You probably already have this, but I'm using more than a few tablespoons this week, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick up a container of grated Parmesan cheese for this meal plan. I'm using a couple sticks of butter in some of these recipes, so I'm gonna include the cost of one of these 2-stick packs in my total, but I'm actually not gonna pick it up today because I have a lot of butter in my refrigerator at home left over from the holidays. I also need both beef and chicken broth for this week's meal plan, about a quart of each. But I actually just made chicken broth in my crock pot last week from the bones of a whole chicken that I cooked. So I'm going to include the cost of a quart of chicken broth, but I'm not gonna pick it up today. But you can pick one up, and you could use broth base or bouillon or broth that you already have on hand too, but I'll go ahead and include the cost of both in my total. You are gonna love what I'm doing with these Rhodes rolls, so don't miss it. For everything that I purchased today at my Walmart neighborhood market, the total came to $69.48. And then if I add in the cost of the handful of items that I did not purchase because I already had them at home, my total comes out to $75.60, which I think is not too shabby considering I'm gonna make 5 delicious and easy family meals for my family for this week. Now, it is nearly impossible to buy every single item right down to salt and pepper that you need for any of these meal plan videos, so I will pop up a list right here of some of the pantry staples, seasonings, condiments, that kind of thing that I'll be using in addition to the things that I purchased today. Maybe there are a few things that you need to pick up, but maybe there are some things that I purchased that you don't need. Sometimes it's a wash. It is a cold, dreary, rainy day, so I have already changed into some sweatpants to be cozy, and I am chopping up some carrots and potatoes so we can get some delicious beef stew going in the slow cooker. I just thought that sounded so good for today given the weather. I'm using almost half of my bag of carrots. I did go ahead and peel them, and I'm giving them a rough chop here. I want to keep them, kind of chunky. And I did not peel my potatoes. I just gave them a good scrub. I picked out the 5 smallest potatoes from my bag of yellow potatoes. It's probably about 1.5 pounds or so of yellow potatoes, and I'm just gonna give those a rough chop as well. I am using a slow cooker with a saute function. So if you don't have a saute function on your slow cooker, you will wanna do this first step on your stove and then transfer it to your slow cooker. I've got about half of my package of stew meat that I bought. This is a little over 1 pound. I'm gonna season it pretty generously with salt and pepper. I'm using about 1.5 teaspoons of salt and then several cranks of pepper. And now I'm gonna toss it with about 1/4 cup of flour. I probably could have just used 2 tablespoons of flour. Probably didn't need the full 1/4 cup, but that's okay. I'm gonna turn the saute function on, and I wanna just brown the ground beef for a few minutes on each side. Now I've got a couple tablespoons of butter. Just gonna drop that in and let it melt. I'm gonna saute about half an onion along with that. My onions are getting translucent, so I'm gonna toss in a little bit of minced garlic as well. And I'm going to switch over to the slow cook function now. This is the point at which you would just move this mixture over to a crock pot. I'm gonna add some garlic powder, probably about a teaspoon, some rosemary, my favorite. The rest of my thyme, I need to get that on my list. About a tablespoon of Worcestershire and about 2 tablespoons, maybe 3, of tomato paste. I'm gonna save the rest of this can of tomato paste because I'm gonna use it in another recipe. I'm putting my carrots and potatoes that I chopped into the crock pot, and then I'm gonna pour in about 3 cups of beef broth. That's not quite my whole carton of beef broth. I need to save about a cup of that for another recipe. And give everything a good stir. A couple bay leaves. And then I'm gonna pop the lid on and let this cook on high for probably around 3.5 to 4 hours because I want that beef to get nice and tender. I might have to add just a little bit of water to this, which would be fine as well. Yeah, just to be safe. I wanna make sure everything is submerged. 1 cup of water. Lid on. 4 hours. Here we go. Kenna has agreed to help me make up the cornbread tonight. So she is going to take these 2 boxes of Jiffy cornbread mix and add 2 eggs, 2/3 of a cup of milk, and 1/2 cup of sour cream, which would be half of my 8-ounce container that I purchased. So she's gonna stir that up, and I'm gonna show you what else we're gonna do to make this cornbread super delicious. My oven is preheating to 400, and I have a 9x13 casserole dish here, and I'm putting in the bottom 1/2 stick, 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm gonna put that in the oven while it's preheating so that the butter melts, and then we're gonna pour the batter into the warm pan with the butter and pop it into the oven to bake until it's done. I'm guessing it's gonna take about 20 to 25 minutes or so, but always a good idea to keep an eye on things because ovens just cook differently. I added a little cornstarch slurry to the beef stew when it was done cooking. After about 3.5 hours, I stirred together a tablespoon of cornstarch and about 3 tablespoons of water and put that into the slow cooker for the last 30 minutes or so. And here it is. It looks and smells amazing. The cornbread also turned out fantastic, and I thought this meal was just a little low on like fruits and vegetables, so I picked up 3 pears that I've chopped up so we can have a little fruit on the side with this meal as well. We cannot wait to dive into this. I want to take a minute to thank BetterHelp. They are sponsoring today's video, and they're offering 10% off your first month for my viewers. We all know that therapy can be very helpful and sometimes important to our overall quality of life, and BetterHelp can make it easier and less intimidating to get started with therapy by matching you with one of their over 30,000 licensed therapists and giving you options for conducting your sessions like video chat, phone calls, or even messaging. Maybe you wanted to try therapy for a while, but you have an odd or an inconsistent schedule, or maybe there's not a therapist in your area that you feel comfortable with, or perhaps you're just intimidated by the idea of walking into an office and having a face-to-face session. BetterHelp can stand in the gap for you. To get started, you fill out a questionnaire that helps assess what challenges you're facing and what you might be looking for in a therapist, and then BetterHelp matches you with one, sometimes in as little as 48 hours. And if you get started with one therapist and it's not a great fit, you can switch at no additional cost. Right now, you can get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp when you visit betterhelp.com/cmindymom, or you follow the link in the description box below. Again, that's 10% off your first month with BetterHelp when you sign up at betterhelp.com/cmindymom. It's the beginning of the year, and a lot of people have things that they want to accomplish in 2024. And one thing that a BetterHelp therapist can help you do is set actionable goals for the things that you want to achieve. Maybe you have goals related to your job or related to your family life, or maybe you are looking for a little help in how we respond to our emotions and our feelings. Whatever your goals may be, a therapist can be a really good sounding board to help you process that and make a plan for how you can achieve them. So if you're interested in trying out BetterHelp and seeing how they can help you, you can visit the link in the description box below or go to betterhelp.com/cmindymom. When you sign up, you're going to get 10% off your first month. And thank you again to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. It is another cold, dreary day here in Tulsa, America, and we have one of those rare nights where we actually don't have any activities taking us out of the household in the evening. So it's a great night for some comfort food. I'm going to be whipping up some carbonara. Actually, I guess I should call it pasta with bacon Parmesan sauce, because as soon as I call it carbonara and I show people how I make it, I'll probably get some comments from people telling me that their great grandmother would totally roll over in their grave if they saw how I was making it. I'm gonna show you how I make it. I'm not saying it's the best, most amazing, authentic way. It's just the way that I make this particular kind of pasta dish, and it's delicious. I start off by getting a big pot of salted water boiling, and then I will put my pasta in the pot. I'm gonna cook about 12 ounces of spaghetti noodles for this. While that's cooking, I'm frying up my bacon. I like to go ahead and chop it before I cook it. And once that's done, I'm gonna take it out of the pot and set it aside. And here's a trick I learned a while back that made this dish come together so much more easily for me. I'm gonna take 6 eggs and beat them well. And I'm going to put the Parmesan cheese that I have shredded in with the eggs and beat it all together. I'm gonna shred up about 6 ounces of my block of cheese. I'm gonna shred it pretty fine. When my pasta is done, I'm gonna drain it, and I'm going to immediately put it into my big pot that I was cooking the bacon in. And then I'm going to immediately begin stirring in that egg and Parmesan mixture and just keep stirring it. The heat is either on low or completely off, because the heat from the pot and the pasta is gonna help cook the sauce. The egg and the cheese is gonna get it all nice and melty, make this creamy sauce. And then I'll toss the cooked bacon in with it at the end, and we'll have this really simple but very delicious pasta dish. The key to making carbonara using this method is to continuously stir it while you're adding the egg and Parmesan mixture to keep the eggs from scrambling. Truth be told, this time my pot was probably still a little bit too hot. I maybe needed to drain some of the bacon grease out, but I think it still turned out really great. It's gonna taste delicious, and we cannot wait to dive into this. I'm gonna keep the veggie side for this super simple. Just steam up some of my frozen broccoli, season it with a little salt and pepper and Parmesan cheese, and call it a day. Because in addition to the carbonara, I'm gonna whip up some garlic knots and then a really tasty dessert to go along with this meal tonight. I have this package of Rhodes thaw, rise, and bake rolls. There are 36 in the package. I'm gonna take 12 of them out and let them thaw, and then I'm gonna roll them, tie them each in a little knot, and set them on a cookie sheet to rise. When they're doubled in size, I'm going to just brush them with a little bit of butter, garlic, salt, and Parmesan cheese, and pop them into the oven. They should take about 8 to 10 minutes to bake at 350 per the usual. You just want to keep an eye on it. With the remaining Rhodes rolls, I'm going to make monkey bread. And if you have been making monkey bread with biscuits, I think you're missing out, because I think it's even better with Rhodes rolls. Now, when it comes to rise time, proofing time for bread products, for yeast bread products, so much depends. A bread product that is rising on a kitchen counter in the summertime, where I am, is gonna rise faster than in the wintertime, because heat is going to make that process happen faster. I have a proof setting on my oven, so it'll heat my oven up just a few degrees, so it's a little bit warmer than the kitchen, which will also help the rolls rise a little bit quicker. And sometimes I'll even turn on the oven for a couple minutes and just let it heat up just a little bit, and then turn it off and pop my bread products in there, and it'll rise pretty quickly. This is not something that I can give you like a finite process in time, because the temperatures in kitchens and just the way that bread products act from place to place are different. So you're gonna have to play around with it a little bit. It's almost noon, and I am getting the roll products out now to thaw, and then in a few hours I'll be able to start the prep process. And I'm gonna try to time it so that the garlic knots are coming out of the oven right as we're eating dinner, and so that the monkey bread is going into the oven as we start eating, so that it's nice and warm when we're ready to eat it for dessert after dinner. I'm gonna let those 24 remaining rolls thaw, and then I'm gonna slice each one of them in half. For this recipe, you're gonna need 1 stick or half a cup of butter melted, 1 package of butterscotch cook and serve Jell-O, and then half a cup of brown sugar. I'm gonna take those roll pieces and I'm gonna put them into a bundt pan. And I'm gonna pour over half of the melted butter, and then sprinkle over the brown sugar and the butterscotch pudding mix, and then pour over the rest of the butter. Then I'm gonna let them rise until they're doubled in size, and then pop them into the oven to bake. I've got my amateur filmer behind the camera here. We made a little vanilla icing from butter, milk, and powdered sugar, a little bit of vanilla, so that they can dip the monkey bread in it. I need to thin it out a little bit now. Now comes the hard part, seeing if we can get it out of the pan. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing! I'm just saying. I just got home from doing something fun, but also kind of scary. I was on live TV. One of the local stations has had me on a few times over the past few months to talk about the same sorts of things I talk about here on my channel. Making meals for our families, how to save money in the kitchen, etc., etc. And it's a lot of fun. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, but it also makes me just a little bit nervous because it's live. You have to speak off the cuff in the moment. So I'm glad I got that opportunity, and now I'm going to get something going in the crock pot for dinner tonight. I'm going to be making my mom's beef stroganoff recipe. This is something she used to make all the time when I was growing up. It was one of my brother's favorite dishes. We always had it on his birthday for sure, as well as other times throughout the year. And I am changing up the recipe a little bit to make it work in the crock pot. Mom used to make it on the stove, but I'm going to get it going in the slow cooker right now. I took the rest of my stew meat, which was a little over a pound, and I put it into a Ziploc baggie. I seasoned it with salt and pepper. You can do that to taste. I probably used about a teaspoon of salt and about a quarter teaspoon of cracked black pepper, and then about a teaspoon of garlic powder. Then I added about 3 tablespoons of flour, and I gave that a really good shake to coat everything. Now I have it in my slow cooker on the saute function with about 2 tablespoons of butter that I melted ahead of time, and I'm just gonna let this brown on all sides for a few minutes before we add the other ingredients. My beef is sufficiently browned, and I've already switched it over to the slow cook function. And now I am going to add 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, about a tablespoon of ketchup, and 1.5 cups of beef broth, or you could use water and then just use a beef broth base or a bouillon. Low and slow for 6 to 7 hours, high for 3 to 4, and then we'll come back and finish it up. Okay, this is what 4 hours on high looks like. The meat is done, and this actually smells so fantastic. I can tell it's nice and tender because my spoon can actually cut the meat. That is a sign of some really tender meat right there. All I'm gonna do now is add 1/2 cup of sour cream. Mom's recipe calls for a full cup, but all I have is a 1/2 cup because I used the rest of it to make cornbread earlier this week. And I usually add less sour cream because I find that a full cup kind of makes it taste bland. You know, it's gonna take a lot of the flavor out of the beef gravy that we've been cooking this in. So I just do a 1/2 cup. Now we have eaten this over rice. We have eaten it over mashed potatoes. My mom actually used to serve it over crunchy chow mein noodles. It was absolutely delicious. But tonight we are going to have it with some egg noodles that I purchased and a side of broccoli, and that is going to be dinner. If you feel like the sauce or the gravy isn't thick enough, you can add a cornstarch slurry. I'm probably gonna add a tablespoon of cornstarch with 3 tablespoons of water and then just let this simmer together for another 10 minutes or so to thicken up. You could also add a couple tablespoons of flour and shake it up with a little bit of milk and add that in as well if you like it thicker. Tonight, I am making baked chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans. Is there any other quintessential stereotypical family meal? I'm not sure, maybe spaghetti. My chicken breasts were kind of large in that family size package that I purchased, so I cut them in half and pounded them a little bit just to make them an even thickness, and they are brining. And I do that by putting the chicken breast in a container and putting a couple teaspoons of salt in with it and then just filling it up with water, and I let them sit for a couple of hours before I begin seasoning them and cooking them. You don't have to do this. I just do this with chicken breast when I'm gonna bake it, especially because I think it makes it more flavorful. What I have here in my bowls is some flour, probably about a cup of flour, and I put about a teaspoon of salt and a little black pepper in there. You don't have to season it if you don't want to. Oops. Hold on. In this one, I have 4 eggs and about a 1/4 cup of milk scrambled. And then in this one, I have a cup of breadcrumbs and about 1/2 cup of this Parmesan cheese. And I took my chicken breasts out of the brine and I kind of patted them dry. They're sitting on this cutting board over here. And what I'm gonna do is dredge the chicken in the flour first and then dip it in the egg and milk wash, and then roll it in the breadcrumb mixture and put it into my 9x13 pan here. I ran out of room in my casserole dish, so I had to use one of my pie plates. I'm making a little extra so I can have some for lunch tomorrow too. I'm gonna pop it into a 350-degree oven and let them cook until they are done. And how long that takes depends on how large your chicken breasts are. Since I cut mine and also pounded them a little bit. It's probably gonna take about 30 to 40 minutes, I'm guessing. You might have noticed that I don't do a lot of side dish recipes here on my channel. I tend to keep the sides pretty simple, I think, in our meals. Usually some kind of starch like potatoes or rice, or maybe some bread if the starch isn't, you know, mixed in with the meal like a casserole or a soup. And then some kind of vegetable. And I know the vegetables that my family likes, and I just kind of rotate through those. For this video, I had planned to do like a salad bar and just pick up salad fixings that I could put out each night for everybody to make their own salads to go along with the meals, but it's so chilly this week that I was really craving warm vegetables, not salads. So I picked up some broccoli and some green beans to supplement these meals, but you can change out the vegetables, you know, according to what your preferences might be. That's just what I got for this week. So it's the next day, and I wanted to come on here and say, in the interest of full disclosure, that about half the chicken turned out the way it normally does. I've made chicken like this before, and the taste and texture was the same as normal, and about half of it just turned out kind of odd. Like, the taste was fine and it was fully cooked, but the texture was a little off. So I don't know if it's something that I did or if it's the chicken that I picked up, because typically those family packs of chicken from Walmart or Aldi, I'm turning into like crock pot meals or soups or stews or something where it slow cooks and then I shred the chicken up. When we make baked chicken or grilled chicken and other cuts of meat like steak, we're typically using our stuff from Good Shop. So I don't know if it was a quality thing or what, but I'm all about being realistic and letting you know that, you know, sometimes I have a fail or a troubleshoot, and for whatever reason, the chicken was kind of a mixed bag last night. I don't know. Maybe one of you noticed something I did that I shouldn't have done. I'm sure you'll let me know if I did. Tonight we are having a creamy chicken noodle soup. I discovered this recipe years ago under the title crack chicken noodle soup because it has a lot of the same ingredients as that famous recipe with chicken, ranch seasoning, bacon, cheddar, cream cheese, but it's a soup, and I have tweaked it over the years to use the ingredients that we prefer and also to make it in the slow cooker. So let me show you how I'm doing that. I have my multi-function slow cooker on the saute function. You could of course do this on the stove and then transfer it to your slow cooker. And this is about 6 pieces of bacon, and I used my kitchen shears just to chop them up into little bite-sized pieces, and I'm just frying those up. I need about a cup of chopped carrots, and I did buy carrots this week for this meal plan, but I've had this little package of julienne carrots in my fridge for longer, so I'm gonna go ahead and use those up in this. And I'm putting those in with the bacon while it's finishing up, just to let them kind of saute with the bacon a little bit and soak up some of that yummy bacon grease, because there's no other like oil or butter in this recipe. I have switched my slow cooker over to the slow cook setting, so I've turned the saute function off, so it'll be cooling down pretty quickly. And I put 2 fairly decent sized chicken breasts in here. It's probably a little less than a pound of chicken breasts. I'm gonna add a packet of ranch dressing mix and about 6 cups of broth. I'm using chicken broth that I actually made in the slow cooker last week when I cooked a whole chicken. You have already seen that video. I got a lot of broth out of the carcass from that chicken, so I'm gonna be able to use some of it in this recipe this week. And last but not least, half a block or 4 ounces of cream cheese. I'm just gonna set this right on top so it can soften and it'll be super easy to stir into the dish. I'm gonna pop the lid on and let this cook on high. It will probably take my chicken about 3 to 4 hours to cook completely. I just want it to cook until the chicken is done and I can take it out and shred it up. My chicken is done, and I took it out of the slow cooker and I shredded that up, and it's sitting aside here. We'll add it back in just a minute. I'm just sort of stirring this up to incorporate the cream cheese. And now I'm adding 4 ounces of spaghetti noodles, and I broke mine up. You don't have to do that. You could put them in whole. I just think it's easier to submerge them when they're broken up like that. 1 cup of milk with 3 tablespoons of cornstarch stirred in, and you want to stir the cornstarch into the cold milk and then add it to the slow cooker, because heat will make the cornstarch start to thicken immediately. So if you try to sprinkle cornstarch into a hot pot, you're gonna end up with like lumps of cornstarch. Put my chicken back in, and then I'm gonna pop the lid on and let this cook on high for another 20 to 30 minutes until the noodles are done cooking, and then it'll be ready. You can stir the cheddar cheese, about a cup or so, into the soup, into the big pot, but I prefer just to shred the cheese up and let everybody add however much they want. And I had just a little bit of bacon that I set back just to sprinkle on the top there for anybody who wants it, and some toast, and that's dinner tonight. Yum. For more dinner ideas, check out one of these videos next, and I'll see you there.